All right, we'll call this meeting to order at 5 o'clock. Would everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, are there any items to add to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we will move on to public comment. Jeremiah?
Yeah, we have one online and a list of in-person coming. Let's go ahead and start with the online, if that's okay with Edie. Jacob Ward. You should be able to unmute now.
Hey, all good?
We can hear you.
All right, thanks. Hey, I'm Jacob Ward. I'm representing Pikes Peak Library Workers United, which is our union here at PPLD. Just two short things. We hope that the selection for the new board member continues smoothly, transparently, and quickly. I actually don't see Dora there, which is good considering the term has ended. And then the other thing is that the district still needs more money. So we'd like to see more publicly held discussion about this. And ultimately, the pursuit of more funding is a necessity for this district's success, which is, of course, a shared interest among all of us. So thank you very much for your time.
Great. And now for in person, we have 10 folks signed up. So to start with, I'll announce you 3 at a time just to save us all of the time. So just please approach the mic sort of in the groups of 3 as I announce you. The first 3 are Joe Pelka, Lisa Bigelow, and Lee Lempool. Lempool, I apologize.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Joe Pelka. I'd like to take you back in the Wayback Machine and remind some of you folks of a meeting that I had with President Smythe and with CEO Tiona and Randy Green back on the 26th of November, when we asked to talk about some of the specifics of your budget, but more importantly, we were told that the board and others were actually looking for a replacement location for the Rock Garden Library. We were glad to hear that, but we also offered to help find you that location. And we were told at the time that we would be given a list of criteria for a facility to look for, doing so that we would know what you folks wanted for a library facility. Well, folks, it's been at least a few months and we haven't heard back from you. We'd love to hear from you. I know you've been real busy closing libraries, possibly buying other libraries, possibly buying a library that has an extremely small clientele. But I know you could probably boost that clientele there at New Pass and start signing up the bears and the squirrels as potential patrons. I'm sure that will boost your number. But Rock Rimmon is still looking for its library, and we're looking for you for some guidance as to what type of facility you're looking for. Let us know. We're out there looking. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Lisa Bigelow, concerned citizen. First, I just want to note, you certainly are not building community trust from the way you held a very short notice work session on February 12th. All I can say is, wow, the famous 5 strike again. It's very alarming that this district cites poor, and yet you discussed a projected unassigned fund balance of $16 million. Your facilities master plan is flawed. And it's almost embarrassing that your CEO and CFO can't provide an analysis or justification of why owning buildings is preferable to leasing. I asked for that documentation formally, and it has never been provided. I looked in your packet today at your December 31st, 2024 monthly financial report, and I have a few comments. How did your personnel expenses exceed budget, when in the past your CEO stated several times that there were significant vacancies and actually had printed off, I think in December, all these vacancies that had applications under review, about 58 of them. Very hard to explain, and I'll be curious to see what your CFO says. You contribute almost $4 million to the fund balance, and yet you claim you couldn't keep the Rock Rimmon Branch Library open. Again, the lack of transparency and maybe incompetency of your fiduciary knowledge needs to be exposed to the public. Under expenditures for public service administrative, the report notes actual expenditures of $772,763 over the budget. Wow, who does your budgeting? That's 9% over budget. And in that category, there's a 30% over budget of $1,380,636 in the collection management library materials. Why is this? Again, who is doing your budgeting? It's very apparent that there are some games being played with the numbers, and you would be wise to support a board of trustees appointment that can help you in the future with your financial needs. Also, I noted that you are buying cars for your security, and I'm just curious, it says the data supported buying vehicles instead of paying mileage for security who need to travel. I would love to see that analysis. Hopefully your CFO can explain that. What is the status of integrating a Northwest Community Library into PPLD? What is the status of placing a detabling question on the November ballot? It appears you have money to purchase the UPass library, and you're discussing the possibility of purchasing the Ruth Holland branch. But when you were given that same opportunity for the Rock Rimmon branch, you completely ignored that opportunity. Figure out why Carrie Geithner has so much influence over this board of trustees, but we're going to keep digging and we're going to find out. And as I've said before, you famous five may have won the battle, but you will lose the war. Thank you.
Members of the Board of Trustees, citizens of Colorado Springs, and lovers of libraries, I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak. I'm Lee Lencool, a resident of Mountain Shadows, District 1, City of Colorado Springs. I asked to speak tonight because residents of District 1 have been done a great disservice by the arbitrary and capricious closing of the Rock Rimmon Library. As some of you may know, my 93-year-old mother, Ruth, a retired elementary school librarian, lives with my wife and I, and so I've heard a lot of this subject. This situation must be remedied promptly with the reestablishment of a permanent public library on the northwest side of Colorado Springs. The process that got us to this sad point was sorely lacking in transparency, respect for District 1 voters, and empathy for the many families who saw the Rock Rimmon Library as their library home, an important part of their intellectual, cultural, civic, and family lives. I've had hundreds repeat hundreds of one-on-one conversations on this specific subject, occurring at meet and greet events, coffee shops, but mostly on the doorsteps of District 1 voters. And I've found that people to be quite candid about their feelings, particularly on the west side. Those feelings are raw, laced with anger, frustration, and a sense of betrayal. When the dust settles after the April 1st election, Colorado Springs will have many new faces on City Council. This presents an opportunity to look at the West Side Library challenge afresh and move past the entirely ineffective approaches seen thus far to drive toward a permanent solution for our citizens. Council should leave no stone unturned to find out what permanent solution is available. No preconceived notions, no thoughts of, well, we've never done it that way, or no shying away from tough but professional conversations with the stakeholders, namely county commissioners and the Board of Trustees. City Council works first and foremost for the taxpayers of Colorado Springs. I can't lose sight of that fact. Such an approach can only be executed by a council that is united in spirit and purpose, working together to solve a difficult problem for the citizens of Colorado Springs. Starting in April, City Council itself must function in an environment of trust, mutual respect, and collaboration to achieve the vital goal of reestablishing a permanent West Side Library. Without that environment, any progress toward a solution will be unlikely, if not impossible. So citizens, taxpayers, voters of Colorado Springs, particularly on the west side, let your city council know that you expect them to work together as your elected representatives to solve this problem and hold them accountable for their performance and their results. Accountability can be uncomfortable when the track record is spotty, but it's the only thing It guarantees City Council will have a renewed focus on teamwork and results as it reestablishes the Rock Rimmon Library and regains the respect of citizens of Colorado Springs.
Our next three speakers are Elizabeth Carter, Veronica Baker, and Judy Garcia.
Good evening, Debbie English is here. Oh, Debbie English is here. So good evening, I wanted to take us back to January 15th, which wasn't too long ago, but has been a few months of this year, at a board meeting, and decision 25-1-2, the UPass building appraisal presentation and discussion. And Debbie English said, so I transcribed this, Debbie, from the recording, and that just stood out to me when you said it. She says, I would like to see us, meaning the board, whether we do it in a series of regular board meetings or we set aside another board meeting, I think we really need to talk about what our priorities are and why we would spend money in one place and not in others. Because for a while, our priority was we can't do anything until we address our capital project backlog. And she goes on to say, I know we have the facilities master plan to guide us, but even in that plan, it recommends that we set priorities. So what are our priorities? She's asking all of you this, and nobody responded to her. But she goes on to say, it seems to me that we have this ever ongoing discussion. And I think it is important for us to hash this out among ourselves. It would be good for our trust level, which is right, and it would also give us guidance as to where we are going. And so that's the end of the quote. And she was met with silence from all of you. So Debbie's comments are disturbingly, it's a disturbing disclosure of how this board is being short-sighted financially and strategically lacking in a managing public money. Debbie is begging, you know, I'm taking words out of your mouth, but she was begging that the board establish a strategic business plan with dollars assigned to priorities and stick to it. It is shocking that a board of 6 individuals, or however many you are, cannot put in a place a plan to manage hundreds and thousands of taxpayer dollars. The plan doesn't exist. And in closing, the minutes from your meeting on January 15th record another interesting fact regarding the UPass building. It says unassigned funds. And this is in the meeting, in the minutes. Unassigned funds in the PPLD budget could be assigned to purchase the UPass library. So why are there unassigned funds in your budget? It's because there is no written plan to assign money to priorities. Where are these unassigned funds coming from? And when citizens begged you for a 1-year extension to keep Rock Rimmon Library open just a few months ago, where were those unassigned funds? We were asking for $100,000. Was closing Rock Rimmon Library an arbitrary decision? If you had a plan, there would have been no debate, right? If you had a strategic plan, you could have told the citizens of Rock Rimmon, this was our plan, but there wasn't a plan. Where is the transparency? Where is your plan? Where are your priorities? Who's responsible? Debbie, have you seen any progress in this area? And who's to take responsibility for this really vital issue?
We've been conditioned, thanks Liz. We've been conditioned to expect that major decisions affecting neighborhoods take time, planning, and collaboration to do right by the community. This board's vote not to renew the lease for a well-loved 35-year-old library leave us dumbfounded in utter disbelief that volunteers serving as stewards of our public services could make this kind of disastrous call. We would expect to see discussions with the affected community, considerations for alternative solutions, and talks about appropriate transitions of services, except this board did none of that. Your short-sighted vote gave our community less than 2 months to respond to this terrible decision. How to repair trust and how to reduce friction within the community were the subject of your last Public Affairs Committee meeting. 1 week later, on February 12th, a hastily planned work session was scheduled in which library priorities were discussed. This meeting was posted 24 hours and 34 minutes before the legally required minimum for the Colorado open meeting laws. This meeting gave such little notice to attendees that 2 board members were not present and no members of the general public were listed in attendance. How are we expected to believe that you are building trust with communities when you hold a meeting discussing many important topics to include establishing more flagship libraries, bringing a library in the Southeast, planning to keep Ruth Holly or moving it to Powers, evaluating whether we should move forward with neighborhood libraries or focus on larger, more centralized locations? By the way, we noticed every corner of our district had a talking point except for the northwest part of the Springs. This contradicts what Mr. Salt told us at the November 19th City Council work session, when he told us that PPLD was actively looking for another location for Rock Rimmon Library, specifically vetting a property off Delmonico. Considering all these examples, how are we supposed to believe you, and how do these actions garner trust? Speaking of trust, we are now committed to checking the PPLD website daily to ensure we are not excluded from another important meeting. And let me be clear, we would not need to do this if we trusted you. We know that the board wants to erase the memory of Rock Rimmon Library. This board won't discuss anything due to the lawsuit. This lawsuit never needed to happen. This litigation comes as a response to your own intransigence and your unwillingness to work with communities. For that reason, it's not going away, and you will continue to hear about Rock Rimmon Library. You see, it wasn't just a tough decision that you made, it was the wrong decision, especially when you were given so many opportunities to work with us. Almost $100,000 raised toward rent, 100+ weekly hours and volunteer shifts, the flexibility of having a year to slow everything down and make a decision that does right by your community. I believe you all are the only library board of trustees with the legacy of closing a vibrant library.
Myself, Judy Darcy is not here, so the next 3 signups are Carla Powers, Dave Donaldson, and Beth Carlson. I don't see David either.
We just finished a CSU board
Yeah.
meeting and he may very well be on his way.
Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Beth Carlson. I am a concerned resident of the Peregrine neighborhood in Northwest Colorado Springs. You have given us a bookmobile, however, the bookmobile is not nearly effective. First of all, days like today, luckily it's not our Friday, but bookmobiles don't travel. So only 50% of the time potentially will the bookmobile be there. And it's only there on Fridays. Other folks work or have part-time jobs, cannot get in. It is not a brick and mortar library like this one, which today did open at 11 o'clock. Bookmobiles did not go out. There is no internet. There are no programs that go with it. And I remember someone mentioning from this board mentioning to us, well, it sounds like what you really need is a community center. I have volunteered at this library doing pull lists and getting out books. And I can tell you, I've never come to the 2nd floor because the 2nd floor of this building is a community center. It is the downstairs that is the library. We want a library to also have programs for folks in our neighborhood. As far as the bookmobile is concerned, selection is always smaller. I have a larger children's selection in my home still from when my children were young and comes in the bookmobile. And it is very difficult for seniors to get in and basically impossible for disabled folks to get in to get books. Should they have put them on hold through the bookmobile that may or may not be showing up because weather does not permit it to do so. So the question is, once again, with all of this unassigned money, why was not some of it assigned to the Northwest, to our area, to give us the library that so many people in our community use? Myself included, my daughter who's come back from CU included, my husband included, and my neighbors as well. We want our library on the Northwest side.
Thank you.
Well, I'm back again, guys. This is tough. You can see the anger. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Okay, so here I am again for the people who could hear me before. Okay, this is Carla Powers, Director of COS Reads, Safe Rockland Library. I hope you can see the same people, same crowd coming to your meetings. These people are not finding their happiness. They're still upset about this. Their children are still waking up and saying, oh, it's Tuesday. Is it time to go to toddler time? They're saying, they're going, it's time for after school. I need to pick up a book for, oh yeah, we can't go except we go all the way across town. That's 20 minutes and then we'll be late for my soccer game. So it's really hard. It's hard for this community to switch gears to something that's not fitting in for their lives. They moved here because there was a library here that fit into their lives so they could educate their children as they saw best. So it's just very, very tricky. It's been really hard to build trust. You know, first, of course, the very quick decision in October totally blindsided us. There's just been so many things. The latest thing is that special meeting that you guys had. It was very frustrating to hear you guys talk about all the future plans for all the other libraries, except for ours. And we know, Erin, we heard you stand up and we felt like you really meant it, that you were looking for a place for us, that you're trying to look for another home for us in the Northwest area. And I know that your life has gotten really busy right now. I don't know how long you're going to be even doing this position, and we can understand if it's too much. But I just want to say, it sounded like you were saying back then that you were looking for another location, another spot for us. And we're really hoping that you would continue on with that and that you would be able to lead this group to find us another spot in the Northwest. And it's sad to me to hear this all of a sudden special meeting that not everyone could even attend. And all of a sudden, Erin's thought about us needing another library and us totally shut out of the picture. It's like, what's going on? The trust is not getting rebuilt, you guys. There's been librarians, many librarians have been helping us to set up the interim library with different questions I've had on things, and I appreciate it so much. They've been very helpful. But I have to tell you, the overall trust, I mean, we have to, I just want to know how many people attended the bookmobile the first Friday. I just want to know so we can put it out in our newsletter. So, hey, guess what? So many people came to a library. It's almost the same as the average amount that came to the Rockrimmon Library. It would have been win-win for us, you guys. Say a whole bunch of people came, they're using it. I could not get that information. They told me that I had to Cora that information. And I slept here. I know how easy it is to find that information. So I'm just telling you, it's getting really hard and very frustrating. Please, let's stop this song and dance. Let's get a library, okay? Thank you.
And the final sign up is Audra Talamentes. I apologize, Audra, if I haven't got your last name down by now.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right, I'm Audra Talamontes. I'm a second grade teacher at Wilson Elementary. I've been here a few times before. I'm just back. I heard that you guys had an offer from the building owner at the Ruth Holly Library. I would just implore you to exhaust all options to consider how to make that happen. I know nothing about commercial real estate or rent to own or any of that, but to just seriously pursue any of the options to make that possible. I was out there last Friday handing out flyers. I talked to probably about 20 different parties that walked in. A lot of them had kids. The D11 was off that day, so I think people were looking for something to do with their children. And out of the 20 or so that parties that I talked to, about 3 to 4 of them already knew that the library would potentially close, but most of them were not. Some of them didn't even know that the other library location had closed. And I know I've talked to you guys before about how there's peer research regarding the impact of a community library on students in that area with their reading scores. And just to remind you that within that 1.1 miles of Ruth Holly, there are 4 Title I schools. I work at one of those. We are very impacted by poverty. Not everyone that goes to our school is, but we have deep pockets of poverty. And just to highlight that, last week, I had my laptop open and I was chatting with the student and he was telling me about how he's so excited for his tablet and to get home and play a game. And he points to my screen. I have the Google search engine up and he goes, I don't have that game at home. They don't have internet access at home, which also means him and his older siblings cannot do their homework at home. And those of us who are current parents know that Schoology is huge. A lot of assignments are submitted via Schoology. A lot of homework assignments are available on Schoology. And if you don't have internet access, you literally cannot get to your homework. You literally cannot submit your homework. And there is pew research on that as well, showing the impact of poverty and lack of digital access on students' school achievement scores. And that was all that I had to say, to just really encourage you to do what you can to keep the Ruth Holly Library open.
And Councilman Donaldson did show up for public comment to conclude it, so.
Yes, so thank you, and it's nice to see you this evening. And so we've spoken many times before, both right here at City Council and other libraries. I won't say too many things that are new. You know how I felt about the closure of Rockman Library. That hasn't changed, but we're where we are today. So we need to find a solution for that. You know, sometimes people make a mistake and then really it's what you do after that that matters. So I would ask you to work with me and the citizens of the Northwest to find a solution for this, to find another home for a library in the Northwest. When you started off with that decision, you probably didn't know how strong the support was for the library up there. And it really is for a small neighborhood library, not for a large library like 21C or East. One of the arguments I heard back then was, well, there's an inequitable distribution of libraries. There aren't any out to the east of here. But what I would suggest is that people who bought their property out east, out in the county, knew very much what they were getting, right? They weren't getting the amenities of living in the city. They weren't getting a library very close to their home. Those who purchased their homes up in the Northwest counted on that library, right? It was there when they bought. Many of them bought, or some of them bought, so that their kids could walk to the library, so that seniors could walk to the library. So again, seniors like my mother can't drive at nighttime to get over to 21C. So it's important to have local libraries and small libraries. During that whole time, those several months when I spoke many times, we went over the efficiency of Rockman Library, the low cost of items checked out, you know, per item. How many patrons went to the library there? How much money was raised by the citizens over there in an effort to find an agreement with the library board to keep it open? So I'm going to do whatever I can to help you find a solution for this. And part of that will be appointing people to the library board who will keep libraries open and will find other solutions rather than closing libraries. I would invite this board or representatives to come to council again. I'm not sure how many months it's been since the last time, and explain what your vision is for the future, right? There were 3 options in the report which you received, 2 of which had to do with increasing the mill levy, 1 of which had some libraries which you could potentially close. I don't remember a process where you voted on which of these 3 you would go with. It seemed that closing Rockman was cherry picked out of that. So again, I ask you to work with me and the citizens that live in that part of the city to find a solution to reopen another library in the Northwest. I know that was a discussion. When it was closed, it was said, hey, we're gonna find a better location, a better building. That building wasn't acceptable. So I ask you to come, meet with me privately, come to council, in general. That being.
It means your time is up.
Oh, okay. So I'd ask you to come and work with me. Let's find a solution to the library back to where it was. Thank you.
For the internal affairs
Okay.
committee report.
Just one, I think. Is it on? I think it's on. Okay. New technology, so exciting. Okay, hi, Internal Affairs Committee, we did meet, on March 4th. And we, as we normally do, talked over, what, 3 different, policies, they're in your agenda today. Well, not policy, I guess the internet service provider, E-rate, vendor is, we're gonna look at that as approving a new, vendor. We looked at, budget adjustment, resolutions, one for the capital fund and, one for the special revenue fund. So we're gonna hear from Randy on both of those tonight, and I'm not sure who's presenting that E-rate stuff this evening.
That can be Dan Stone.
Oh, okay, great. So yeah, that was it. Very uneventful.
Okay, thank you. And public affairs
Did not meet.
did not meet, okay. Governance committee.
Governance committee did meet. We discussed, what was pulled off of the last agenda, concern about the CEO conflict. There was a new added line about the possible conflict between, foundation and the CEO of PPLD. Been brought back tonight, so we'll have a vote on that. And then, of course, we moved it at that point into executive session over an employees evaluation.
All right, now, it's time for liaison comments. I see we have at least one liaison.
Don't see any online.
Wait, Councilmember Hedger, if you'd like to provide some comments.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being here. I would actually like to really ask questions, and I would super appreciate if you all would respond to some questions. I have 3 things that I would like to share, comment, and have a little bit of dialogue with you about. The first one really is about the Rockford Library. Mr. Saul, you did come to our council meeting on the 24th, and you said that regarding the search for a replacement location for Rockland Library, you and other board members had visited a few properties that could be bought or leased, but hadn't yet found a desirable space that met the rough budget goal of $18 per square foot. My question is, are you continuing the search?
I have had several conversations as recent as about a month or so ago, and at that point, the conversations were continuing, but there was not a specific situation, property that was identified at that point. I was talking to a couple business partners in the community about kind of partnerships and how we can work together. They were having to run that back to their teams. We have not been able to re-engage in that in the past month or so, but some ongoing conversations.
Okay. What is the current plan at this point of the board regarding our brick and mortar space for in the Rockland?
But
Or
we
anywhere on
consider
the
proposals on case by case basis, so in terms of voting, we would not be bringing something for discussion vote unless there was a solid proposal on the table. So I don't have further information on that until we have. A voting on.
Where would the
So-
proposals come from? Where would you?
Like as Mr. Salt is referring to, if we had a proposal for a building, that would come up for discussion, but as we don't have something at this time, that's not.
A proposal from who that, like, wouldn't that be something the board would be responsible to be looking for? I mean, I think that's my question is, what is your proposed timeline for addressing a replacement for Rockland? You don't have one, it sounds like. Okay, fine. So another question I have for you, I just learned about this myself. But on President Trump on March 14th, in an executive order targeted the Institute of Museum and Library Services for potential elimination. And also stated he signed an executive order that says continuing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy. It targeted 7 agencies, including the Institute of Museum and Library Services, for elimination to the maximum extent consistent with applicable law. The order, detailed in a White House fact sheet, instructed agencies to reduce non-statutory functions and personnel, aligned with the Department of Government Efficiency initiative led by Elon Musk. So my question is kind of twofold. Does the board have a position on this president's executive order? And if you don't, I mean, if you could just share what your thoughts are on that. But also, given PPLD's reliance on property tax as your budget, do you see any impacts potentially coming down the pike with this executive order and targeting libraries and museums?
Very good question. We can't speak to national policy. However, we do our best to look down as to future projections financially, as Mr. Green often brings up projected real estate rises and falls and different things that we expect coming down the line. So we do our best to anticipate anything that we would need to think about and make sure that we're stewarding our finances properly.
Well, if you would consider a conversation at some point regarding the library board's position on the importance of libraries in the community. You know, I think, wow, this is local and I'm grateful for that myself. What's happening federally is having a significant impact on every aspect of our community, given how much military is here and veterans and federal funding that impacts so much of what we do as city and county local government. So I would really appreciate you all considering a conversation about that and preparing. And without knowing, I don't know what, if any, of your budget pertains to any federal funds that would be impacted, but I would encourage you to consider having the conversation. So thank you for that. I guess my last comment or question, and it's a little bit of an update. And I gave this update, I think, I can't remember if we'd had the interviews at City Council since my last update, but we have interviewed 7 candidates, all of whom were presented to us by your governance subcommittee. I'm not at liberty to say who those candidates were. We have forwarded 2 names to the county commissioners. I have heard nothing, no one from City Council directly or officially has heard anything from the county commissioners. I do understand via one of the advocates here that a couple of people have been called for an interview by the county commissioners on Thursday. So I'm very happy to hear that actually, and keen to know if those are the same people that we're interviewing. Because once we have hopefully similar applicants that we have been interviewed, then we'll be able to have a joint meeting as liaisons and work to find a replacement for Laura, which I know is really important that we fill that position. I guess my question for you is, one, do you have any questions about any of that? But my question for you is, it feels to me like since this Rockland thing happened, the whole liaison system is kind of not working well, or it's really shifted. And this board and the organization has taken your hands off the application process. And I'm just wondering from a governance perspective, what your thoughts are on how this relationship is working with the city and the county, the liaisons, governance, how we do replacements. I haven't heard from you at all. I've written to you all. I have not heard back. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it before I forget, we received city council and myself as a liaison in particular, because I've been coming and talking with a number of these folks and others, come or write to us, and they're asking us about matters that are your decisions, not ours. And I really try to be responsive, but they're asking me questions that are not in my purview, they're in yours. And so I always ask, like, please let me know what you hear back. Some of you have been copied on those emails and I've never seen a reply. So I would really appreciate kind of knowing from your perspective, how is this relationship working from your perspective with the liaisons as a governing body? You know, what's your assessment about how this is working?
Thank you for your comments. As you know, at this point, the governance committee has handed off those recommendations, so I don't have any further comment at this time regarding the process, but we appreciate your comments and your update on the trustee search.
Does any board member have any comments they would like to make in response to my questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Now it's time for trustee comments, ways to engage with the district or engage with the public on behalf of the district. I'll start. I finally signed up for the virtual reading program. I'm very late and probably missed out on those wonderful tote bags and mugs and things like that, but I'm still excited to be participating. I'm excited to see a lot of people were interested and signed up. A young relative of mine who just turned 18 went out the next day and signed up as well. He was waiting for that, and so he's excited to join. So with that, had some good time connecting with staff. Got to step into a staff meeting and meet some folks I had met before in IT and security, and thank them for their work for the library, and just engage in some different things like that. I can't recall anything else on top of my head. Anyone else want to share?
I had to miss the last foundation board meeting, but I was able to attend a fundraising discussion foundation yesterday, and I will say that there were some fun ideas presented for how the foundation might both raise its profile as the arm of the library, or the arm that supports funding for the library, and then also to have some fun events for the public to participate in. It'll be fun.
Thanks, Debbie, for attending that. I appreciate it. And I was able to attend the foundation meeting, and it's very interesting to see how that organization is coming together. And I think they're working very hard on finding their processes, and they're coming to their own. And I look forward to being able to be a part of that and see what we can do together.
So I got my copy mug from the adult winter reading program. I've used it many days since I got it. My wife got hers and I went to the other kids. A great conversation with a couple of the staff of the front office, and I often frequent the Friends bookstore downstairs and always spend money every time I walk in there, even when I don't have anything specific on it. So appreciate what we have and the programming we have. Got incredible staff and very excited to meet.
Any further comments? Then we will move to the Friends of the Pikes Peak Library District report.
I don't see Rita online. So
I apologize. She did send me a message saying that she would be unable to attend because of a meeting in Manitou.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't mention it
Of
earlier.
course, she's not here, we'll go ahead and move on to the financial report.
Good evening, board members. Sorry, a frog. Again. So what I was able to get for you for this meeting is a preliminary of our. What I was able to deliver to you guys today is a preliminary December 31st, 2024. As all of you know, we won't have a final until we're done with our audit, and that'll be sometime in June, early July. So obviously this isn't a set of financial statements that includes everything that we may end up finding as far as adjustments or expenses that need to be coded into 2024 that haven't been caught yet. But as it sits right now, the district as a whole, our revenue is about $16,000 below what the adjusted revised budget came out to. And I wanted to make a comment about the revised budget. So this particular report does not show the original budget. It shows revised, which includes revisions that are included on page 7, I believe, that recaps all the adjustments we've made. The biggest one we usually make each year is the supplementary budget adjustment at the end of the year. So that if you're going back and looking at the original budget, obviously you're not going to find that number. You'd have to go to page 7 and look at basic line 1 of the revenue expenditures in each of those major categories to see what the original budget was. And that's just the way this report's presented. I'm actually working on a newer version of this coming out of our ERP system that will include more information than this report's got. We're just not done with it yet. Expenditures is showing that we're $4 million ahead. The personnel expenses are within 87,000. Actually, that's after again our adjustment for the year on our vacancy pool, which I've mentioned many times in meetings leading up to year end, that our adjustment has been large for the last 4 years. Much of that started topping $2 million when COVID hit, and we've had issues hiring enough people to slots that we want to fill since then, and that's continued through 24. The adjustment I ended up putting into our budget adjustment was $2.5 million roughly. So if you were to add that back into the revised budget number there, our number for budget would be $24,388,000, and our variance would be underspent by close to $2.5 million, obviously. Our operating expense, again, there may be things that need to be accrued that haven't been accrued yet. So that's a possible explanation, or it might actually be that you know, our staff has kind of been trained for the last 4 years to be very frugal. And so things that we may budget throughout the year just don't get spent because people are of the mindset that they don't want to spend the money. Capital outlay, that's a direct result of carrying over dollars from a previous year for projects that we can't get closed or done the previous year. So there's always a carry forward. And then the actual spend is what's in the actual column. That does not include numbers that we will have encumbered at the end of 2024. That doesn't ever show up in an actual number. That number right now is showing to be roughly $1 million. So the end result of the actual numbers versus the revised is a $4.1 million net impact to fund balance as shown here. That does not include the $2.1 million in miscellaneous other. That was a tax revenue that came to us via the state legislature voting in an act, and they basically gave us $2.1 million, which is kind of in suspension right now. I had to book that as revenue into this year because it was given to us by the state, and I won't be able to actually recognize that as to whether it goes to taxpayers or stays with the district until next year when I get our evaluation on our property valuation and go through the Tabor calculations. At that point, I'll have some ideas how much of that money is ours and how much is taxpayer. Until then, I have to push it through as if it's revenue that we get to keep. And in 2025, this year, I would move it over from unassigned revenue, or I'm sorry, fund balance, and put it over into a restricted fund, which means that's generally reserved for law regulated fund balance limitations that I have to adhere to, i.e. We have to hold a Tabor reserve by law, and it's at about $1.3 million. And I will put this into that thing, which means no one can touch it until I figure out who it belongs to. So that's showing up in that 4.1 just because of the way I have to account for this. The $1 million in capital encumbrance, that is money that will get carried over into next year and will increase our budget for next year. The money has to come from somewhere. It will come out of fund balance. And then our estimated personnel market study that we completed before the end of last year, and physically we weren't able to act on that until January 17th. Our payroll periods, it takes a month from the day we start a pay period of 2 weeks till that money is paid to our employees. So and I'm mentioning that because the decisions and the information for that market study was determined before the end of the year, which is why we could tell you about it before December 31st. And that was estimated at $1.8 million. I don't have a final number on that yet. If you add up all those, the three numbers I just gave you, that's $4.9 million. That if it had been in this number that's showing as 4.1, obviously I'd be showing a hit to our fund balance of $800,000. The other thing is, obviously I mentioned the capital encumbrance. That does not come out of our general fund. That would go against capital reserve or fund balance. The other two would be coming out of the general fund. One note on the capital encumbrance: if we don't have funds over in the capital funds to cover that type of stuff, then it has to come out of the general fund. That's how we fund things. So moving on to general fund, that's page 2. Again, I've mentioned this before, that this is where all of our normal operating spending and revenue goes through. I can take the general fund, add the capital fund and the insurance fund together, and that should equal out to this top page. And you can see, I'm not going to go through all of the detailed numbers again because they're all very similar to the front page. We'll go through the pieces and it become apparent. We did have a transfer out, for 2024 out of the general fund over to the capital fund, $1.1 million. And you're not seeing anything on the front sheet for that because it nets out against the add to the capital fund. Again, the $4.2 million on this page would actually probably be closer to $1 million minus. Our ending fund balance would have to be reduced by that 4.9 million also. As far as the unassigned balance, one of the things that we keep in there is a spending reserve. The board, through policy, has indicated to me I need to keep 15% of our operating revenue in that account. So that comes out to about 2 months of spending. 2 months of spending for us is about $6 million. 3 months, we've also done 3 months when you felt like that was appropriate. So that would be $9 million. So basically, anywhere from $6 to $9 million would come out of that ending fund balance as far as untouchable. I'm probably going to make this a little easier for everybody to look at this and know what the number of the unassigned is set up another account for kind of a spending reserve, and that number, once you guys tell me this is the amount of money we want in there, then I would maintain that number until you change it. And so whatever it takes to push that up and down would come out of the true unassigned fund balance. Page 3 and 4 is more detail on the actual spending in the general fund by department. These variances, again, are not locked down. I generally go through and look for areas where we over budgeted and under budgeted, and I will make adjustments to bring those more in line as to what, if we'd known what we know today, then I would have put that number in there. It doesn't change the bottom line at all. It represents more what we actually ended up spending on that line item. On page 4, you can see the attrition savings of 2.473 million. Comes right out of all those pluses. Page 5 represents our capital projects fund. So the original budget on the capital fund for expenditures was 2.7 million, and I'm looking at page 7. And our rollover from the previous year for projects not finished was also $2.7 million. And then we had some much smaller adjustments through the year, mostly at the end of the year, as we discovered things that we needed to adjust. So that accounts for that $6.2 million number for the budget. And we were able to spend 3.7 of that. And again, I've got $1 million encumbered. That is for dollars that I'm going to have to take out of a fund balance. So the 2.7 million ending balance would actually be more like 1.6, 1.7. Moving on to the self-insurance fund. This particular fund, actually, our expenses on the medical, I've talked about this before too. Our HR department does a great job of sending out information to employees about ways that they can cut their own costs and in turn cut costs for the district by not going to urgent care at a hospital, go to a clinic I've done that several times. It's saved me a lot out of my pocket and it has saved the district a lot of money. So that combined and you know, we're out of the COVID year and people not going to the doctor when they couldn't or should have, or they just couldn't get in there because they weren't available. So a lot of that piled up in 21 and 22. That seems to have leveled out some. And I cut back on employee contributions on purpose last year. Knowing that we had a fund balance carry forward of $1.4 million from the previous year. And I was purposely cutting into that to keep that contribution cost to our employees down. The only other thing on this sheet that you aren't going to see yet is, again, because this is a preliminary, our net impact to fund balance shows a negative 416,000. That does not include our lag period, which for us is generally January 1st through March 31st. And that's where we have the insurance company tell us things that were incurred in the previous year as far as coverage and, you know, actual appointments and whatnot, that people haven't, the hospital doctor would haven't been paid for yet. And so that runs out three months every year, and we end up having to make an accrual back into the previous year to recognize that expense in the year it was incurred. And that'll run us anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000. So where you're seeing $978,000 there, that could be closer to $700,000 or $800,000 instead of the close to $1 million that's showing there right now. And then page 7 is me recapping all the adjustments that you've approved, starting with the original budget ratification, and then all the dates and basically what it was you were approving by category, and then, you know, a net change to fund balance for the budget of $147,000. And obviously I try to keep that as close to zero as I can. We actually started, our original budget was $800,000 minus, and that was because the board had considered spending the $1 million that we would have to spend to put something on a ballot, and that didn't happen last year. So that of course is reflected here because we don't have the 700, we have 147 plus. That was a lot, and I generally don't go this long, but this is a December year-end preliminary, so I thought it warranted me talking about it a little bit more in more detail. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Moving on to the public services reports. Janine, is that you tonight?
Yep, that's me. Okay. Just introduce her. Okay. So I'm Janina Krug, the Director of Branches, and I'm filling in for Tammy this week. So you've got the report. I was reading through it. I'm always amazed at what my colleagues are doing. And of course, I'm very partial to what branches are doing. So I'm just going to highlight a little bit about branches. If you, the top first thing that we mentioned is that we did start the bookmobile stop at the Wilson Ranch Park. And I don't know if any of you saw on Facebook last week, but our new bookmobile is in the final stages of being done. So it's just been a very exciting week for that. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit more about what's going on with bookmobiles lately. We currently have 34 stops for the bookmobile and 17 for the lobby stops. And so when we get that new vehicle, it's going to replace one that is ready to retire. It's telling us that actually. And our newest stop is the Wilson Ranch stop. They're on Fridays from 10 to 4. That is the longest stop that we have. We do have 2 other weekly stops. One of them is on Mondays at Black Forest Community Church, but we close for lunch for that one. And for the Wilson Ranch stop, we were anticipating that it could be kind of busy, so we added a 3rd employee to that. Normally we have 2. And so then that way they can rotate out for lunch and we don't have to close it so the employees can have lunch. We also have a weekly stop on Saturdays at Bonfort Park. And then there's some other, the rest of our stops are like twice a month, every other week. And the lobby stops, we go twice or once a month to those locations. I just, for some insight, if you're curious, like what does it take to drive the bookmobile? The staff have to do like a inspection, like as if you're flying an airplane. You need to make sure that all the lights work and all the things work and all the tires have air. That's very important. And so they do a pre-inspection, they make sure things are loaded correctly. And that's why our stops usually start at about 10 o'clock, some of them earlier if they're closer to where we start, to our garage. And then when we're done with the day, we have to unload materials and load new materials, the holds for the next location, fill the shelves because they get depleted and things like that. So even though our core hours are like 8 to 5, our stops usually run between 10 to 4 so that we can make sure we have all the other stuff done. And then, yeah, this morning we had a delay. So we had to cancel the morning stops for the bookmobile, but the afternoon stops still ran. And so I've been working with the manager to kind of provide some criteria for what makes us make those decisions. Because we do have to have like, these are big vehicles and there's safety involved. So we're working on having something that we can post, but right now the criteria, it doesn't change. We've been doing the same thing for many years. We're just like writing it down. But one is like if there's a delay, a library delay, then we stop at least the morning stops because we need to have time to get the vehicle ready in the morning and do the inspection and everything. Depending on the condition of the roads, we may or may not have services in the afternoon. If the forecasted high is less than 15 degrees, we don't go out. If it's over 90 degrees, we may not go out depending on the vehicle that we have, because some of our vehicles, we may be able to cool them enough and others we may not. And then we also look at like hazardous driving conditions. So obviously road conditions, we all look at that when we're driving anyway. So we have to be mindful of that. Fog and visibility factors into that, but also one thing I don't always think about because I drive a low profile vehicle is the wind. And so if we're seeing that the wind is going to be 40 miles an hour or higher, and we have some resources that we can consult to see the sustained wind and the projected gusts, then we will cancel stops for that day because it would be very dangerous to do that. So when you see a high wind warning or when you hear people talk about high profile vehicles, the bookmobiles are included in that. And then of course, if there's mechanical issues, we might have to cancel something. So, but yeah, bookmobiles are exciting. And when we get our new vehicle, we can't wait to show it off. It's really beautiful. So if you have any questions about anything related to public services, I may or may not know the answer, but I could try. Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. I saw, like Penrose and the Conference Fire Department were doing some partnership work to, assist the homeless population down there. I was just wondering if there was more information on that.
We had a partnership to, for our staff, for us to have specific staff to execute a VISPADAT, with our patrons, and that's really outside of the scope of library work. So yes, Takia worked with the fire department to start a partnership so that they could have a space. I'm not entirely sure when they start coming. We just signed the agreement in February. So, but yeah, that's in order for, because we are still a location that people might come to saying, I need to figure out how to get started in this. But again, it's like, it's a very specialized process. And so, yeah, the fire department was interested in working with us to make sure that happens. So it's a very cool thing.
Yeah, I also wondered about the monthly KPIs. I saw resources were up. Is that pretty typical during the colder months? Like that kind of goes up and.
You know, I don't know the trends exactly, but I mean, that certainly could be it. I'm not sure what the trends are. I can find out and get back to you all.
Just love
Yeah.
to see more about the longer term trends for that.
Absolutely.
Looks like we also have a library card partnership with the Council of Parents School to come encourage families and kids to.
Yeah.
So
Always,
that as well.
always exciting to get people to bring their families in and get signed up at the library.
Great.
Yeah.
So anyone else have any questions or comments on that? Any questions or comments on support services, communications, facilities, human resources, IT, safety, security, strategy, and management? No. Alright, so we will move to the chief librarian and CE report.
Okay, so right now we are finalizing our public library annual report to the state. So Laura and I had this privilege to look at those numbers together. So this is fresh and exciting stats that we have. A total circulation increased in 2024 more than by 3%. So it was about over 7 million. So I think that's exciting. Also, patron visits to our facilities increased by 1.5%. Significant increase that there are certain libraries that I'm going to list that actually experience that East Library, 21C, Calhoun, Shannon Library, Monument, Old Carter City, and Ruth Holly. So when we looked at all of the locations, you could see that increase by patrons, even though East Library was closed for 2 weeks and Ruth Holly Library was closed for a week for renovation. So we still saw that increase. Of course, programming, Penrose Library experienced a huge increase in program attendance. Children's program increased by 16.9%. Adult program increased. It was crazy. The numbers I looked today, it's over 100% attendance. Even though we are offering less programs, we're seeing that increase in our program attendance. Also, what we experienced that some of the program attendance increased offsite, but because we are getting more engaged with the community in outreach, so those numbers are very promising. Also, adults programming attendance on site increased by 79% and off-site by 37%.
This is all Penrose.
Also, yes,
Okay.
just look at that. And also, and overall, we do see that. And like Julie, you mentioned that we do have engagement with different community organizations and school districts as well, and like a fire department. So what we're looking right now, seeing what is our actual core mission and what are other departments and community organizations that are doing certain services that we can partner with. So we will see more of that increase in that area as well. And another exciting number that I have, Denise just shared with me. As you know, that we had a library card design contest. Thank you. And we had 814 actually entries, 814. So our communications team, I believe they selected 6, and we will have that ceremony on the 5th of April. So those designs are beautiful, but also it's so amazing to see that our community, they would like to be part of PPLD, and so many individuals took their time, and there's so many art pieces there that were amazing. I don't know how they managed to select only 6. So that's an exciting event that we're going to have on the 5th of April.
Are we going to show all the entries on the 4th?
Yes, on the 5th it will be in person, but I believe what Denise's and her team's plan is to have those available online.
That'd be great.
Yes.
That's a lot, but yes.
That's a lot. That's why I don't know how, I believe they had different thoughts how they wanted to do it, but they got so many entries that they changed that and they focused on like being with the team, and that's how they selected those designs. Nice. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Oh, may I add one more thing, please? I did have a conversation with the director of Jeffco Library. As you know, they do already have this hybrid or express library there. They've had it for 3 years and they have an amazing success rate. During 3 years, I believe they have only 2 incidents. And and first when they started, it was a trial. So her board, they wanted to look at that and look at stats and see if the community would like to have such resource, and what they're seeing, it's very successful. So they're open to community from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. They're also open on some of the holidays as well.
How many branches do they have that model have?
They only have 1 branch right now.
I know they open on Sundays as well.
Their IT department, sorry, Dan, that's what they asked them, if they could have a Sunday off, because they're doing a lot of refreshment when it comes to all of the IT related updates. But they do try to have that library open on holidays as well, that particular library. They also have Holt pickups there at almost in front of every library location. So it's like an Amazon type, but also they have partnerships with other community organizations that they have agreement. And she did share with me that she would share some of those agreements with me as well. And they find it being also very successful, that how community uses those services as well. One particular location, when they implemented, they had such a wait list that people had to wait for 2 months. So it was so popular. So again, we are collecting all of the data and looking not only nationally, but also in our own state and asking them for their expertise and advice. So that was exciting to gather that information and see that it was so successful. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there are no further questions. We'll go on to consent items. Any discussion on the consent? We'll move on to unfinished business. Decision 25-3-1, Chief Executive Officer Conflict of Interest Statements. Should be.
I've got a question about this. I saw the statements that I'm gonna talk about both of these together as the CEO and the board member. I would really like to remove the statement about this being readopted every year. Then we had a little bit of a conversation about this last year or last month. About the regularity of this and whether it needed to be done or not. Looking at the bylaws, it says it just needs to be reviewed regularly. It doesn't say that it has to be adopted regularly. And so it feels unnecessary for us to force an adoption on this every year if there's no changes that are made.
Okay. I mean,
Was there rationale behind putting it there?
I don't know why. I know that we discussed the foundation statement because we didn't want to have this conflict with the foundation and vice versa.
Sure.
So this actually, to me, this supersedes that. But I agree. I mean, that last statement, I don't remember discussing that, but it does say in the bylaws that we just have to review it every year on the governance committee. It doesn't have to be readopted unless, like you said, there are changes.
And there is a number of changes. We could separate out the 2 and then the.
Right. No, I know that we've made some changes to it this year. I've got no issue with that. I just, as we're making changes, we could not force ourselves to make changes. Do this unnecessarily in the future. So I would Make a motion to, strike that line and the parentheses on both the CEO and the board conflicts of interest statements.
I'm sorry, I also noticed that there is a formatting item, so the very first item should be number 1 and not number 5. So I don't know if that's been changed.
I thought I was looking at the middle of something
No.
at first. I should have
Yeah,
said something.
it's just on the CEO.
Yeah.
It just, that needs to be number 1 instead of number 5, so.
That is second my motion to strike.
What did you say? Okay, great. Okay, so we move to strike that and then
What will be my motion to include fixing the
It's gonna say the same
the
thing.
formatting.
Yeah.
In number.
Debbie, a second.
I'm good with that.
Okay, cool. Okay, well then, I'll go ahead and, offer the vote to, so, okay, so now we need to vote on the motion. Okay, so we voted to amend it, so, I'm sorry, should I vote?
Have a motion in a second.
Sorry.
Vote on that.
I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor of amending the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the conflict of interest. The CEO conflict of interest statement as amended.
A second.
I'll second that.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries and we'll move on to decision 25-3-2, the Board of Trustees conflict of interest statements. That one also had the addition of the foundation statement in it, which is why we're voting on it again.
I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Trustees conflict of interest statement as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And for clarity, that's as amended, removing the parent threat.
Correct.
Five-3-3 under new business and service provider E-rate. Dance.
I think it would be better there because it's in here.
Again, so wanted to just go over the internet. So the change in this RFP and what we're doing is, as we had before, we had a BLS or a fiber ring, as you would know. So if one of the big three, East, Penrose, 20 Suite, 21C goes down, five other locations go down because it depends on that. Used to be, we couldn't do that because of the cost prohibition, would prohibit us. We've now been able to do it so that it's actually less expensive for us to go that route. And also increase almost 3 to 5 times our internet speed. We're also gonna be able to do internet bursting with that. So summer reading, like on Gigi's on there, so she calls me up and says, Dan, we have a ton of people out here on East. Internet's slowing down. I can literally just burst it for a little bit while and increase maybe up to 1 extra gig. So, that'll be helpful. Also on some of those on the RP2, you'll notice we have split tunneling on that too. What that means is, so if I have 2 gigs of service going somewhere, I can have 1 gig on one pipe, 1 gig on another, so it's kind of redundant. So if one goes down, at least I still have that 1 gig going. So it's going to give us a lot of redundancies, a lot more speed, and as you can tell, it's also going to bring the cost we're currently have down as well. So it's time to move on. That's what we're doing. Any questions?
I do have a question. So the overages, are we charged for the overages or is that included in the base?
The bursting?
Yeah,
That's gonna be depending. For instance, if it's like a few days or something, yeah. Can they? Yes, but I've never seen that before. They usually general, if it's to stay on, so we needed it that way, then yeah, they would.
okay.
Any further questions?
Basically, it's like, dial up to the standard fiber, so it's nice.
Right, any other questions or discussion?
I move that the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees approve the internet service provider fee rate tender. As presented.
All right, well, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move to decision 25-3-4, budget adjustment resolution, capital funds prior year roll forward. Great, well, explain it to us.
Andy show.
It's a revenue show.
Good evening again. So this is a resolution that I mentioned earlier is pretty much handled every year. So the numbers on this attached schedule includes our originally budgeted items that were approved for 2025. And then items that were left over from last year that had been approved in the previous budget and not completed. So our total of 3.1,074,000 is increasing by 3.977, so that gives us a total of $7.2 million. Between the internal affairs meeting and tonight's meeting, management was looking at the report again and noticed that there were line items on the report that we felt needed to be clarified, more information given, or funds that had been assigned to Penrose actually needed to be assigned to East or an AMH system. That is actually our
It's automated
material handling. Yeah. So that's actually, I don't think I indicated that on this form, and I realized that after I sent this over to Laura yesterday, but I believe that is on our facility master plan. I'll have to double check that, but
if I may, we've been trying to get this for years right now. Currently, how we have the system at 21C Library. And also, as you may know, that Peace Library is very busy when it comes to circulation returns. And it does take a lot of staff to process all of this information. And I know that Janina did, I think, research back in 2019. How would it help us? Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. Right now, how are we looking at that? Hopefully, when we purchase that, it will save about 2 full-time employee time and those employees can be assigned to something else. So again, it's the exact same system, what we have at 21C Library. And if you'd like to take a look, it's downstairs. So at East Library, unfortunately, we've been deferring, I believe, it for years. And I think it's time to address that and to ensure that the staff there, they don't have such pressure to process all of that, all their returns fast. Thank you.
thank you, Tim. So that was the only change on this front resolution sheet, was discussing those changes to this sheet, the dollars and the amounts by location are pretty much identical except for that one item. So this is pretty straightforward, process we go through every year. So any questions?
What do the asterisks mean?
That's actually how I was trying to indicate on that form, that there had been a change to that, particular category or, project description.
It's just a project description, not the amount.
For instance, Penrose, there was a line item on there for renovation or remodel expenses. And we felt that probably needed to be elaborated on a little bit more. That will include 4 elevators being modernized. Children's in the remodeling and reset up of the children's area there, we discovered that our children's emergency exit was not adequate. And so they're gonna have to basically tear out what's there and replace that. And then more access control panels and wiring and all that will have to be added because we're segregating children's and of course other areas. So we just thought that made a little more sense since we kind of knew that's what that was being earmarked for, to put that on there so you would know that.
So I've got a question. This is page 3, bottom. You have fountain with 5 rooftop unit replacements and $85. Where do you get the rooftop units from? Because I could help with this.
I think we should ask Michael that.
Yeah,
I think it's Michael.
I was gonna say, actually, I mean, this number, I could probably look back. This number is probably not a new number for last year. It's probably been carried forward several times. Gary and I talked about those rooftop units several times, and he said basically, they had a life on them, and obviously if they weren't broken, he wasn't gonna take them out of service. So I don't know if those particular units have outlived their life, their expected life, and these were costs that were brought in at the time he thought they were gonna go out, but and I don't know what the individual costs are.
My question is more around the allocation itself. We have $85.
Oh, I mean, I must be looking at the wrong line.
I'm showing page 3 of 9.
I think there might be a mistype there. The only thing that's coming to mind right now is that there were some units replaced at Palmer Park at around, or Palmer Lake at around $85 a unit, and those were window units. So there were 4 window units replaced at Palmer Lake because of the significant heat there. And those were window units, and I remember those coming in around 85. So that might be a mistype, and it says FO instead of PA. But I can certainly look into that. There are, if you're looking for RTUs for $85, they are not.
At first, you got listed as RTUs for 85. And I was like, wherever you're going, I want your guy.
If someone has that information, please pass it along.
Yeah, so now I'm on the right page. Actually, what I think that is remnant left over from previous spending that didn't get cleared.
Okay.
And so, that's probably a remedy to that, is that dollar amount needs to be collapsed either back to fund balance or over to another project that needs it.
If I may add to that, as you may recall, so we had some capital funds for years and years, like previously sitting on certain accounts, and then that's what we had to bring it collapse and actually see what projects needed to be done. And that's what's happening. Very often what we see there, it's like, I don't know, it might go back to 8 years or sometimes, I don't know, 9 years back. So, yeah.
I had a feeling there was either it was remnant or supplemental or something.
Yeah, no, that's
just on the off chance you had $85 rooftop units.
No. No, I can almost guarantee you that is leftovers from previous spending that didn't get cleaned out. Yeah. Any other questions?
And if you notice, Scott, it's all the details because that's what's, I believe that last time was requested to give more details. So, and hope that covers a lot of detail.
Any further questions? No, then we'll.
I just have one more, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
So the last, page 7 of 9, page 51 of 58 of the packet. There seems to be a lot of future unforeseen issues. Is that like a percentage of an overall based on the specific location, or how is that calculated? Because that seems like that's a lot.
So how this whole section came to exist is we've been attempting for at least a year or so to take stranded contingency numbers from locations and the different funds and consolidate them under a capital area for finance. And what we're trying to force is people in positions to buy those materials who have access to the contingency accounts to come through finance to explain what they need the money for. I don't necessarily have dollar amounts that these are assigned to. We have things like we had a couple of years ago, we had electric backup for 21C. That no one planned on that going out. It was $200,000. So I don't know if this is extravagant or not. It probably needs to be looked at again before we get through the end of this year. But we do have, probably Michael would be a better one to ask about what's hanging out there that has already become an issue that we didn't know about back in August when we put this new budget together and we're carrying the old one over. But that was the purpose of consolidating this stuff into a separate section. Previously, this stuff had been spread all over and it was hard to identify what that number was. And it was being spent sometimes without, finance being in the middle of it because it was available.
Thank you for bringing it up.
I can speak to that a little. So Randy's absolutely right. Previously, the every project had a contingency, and so every project that was done would have a contingency set aside for that. And then those were the ones that would sit out when the project was complete. Those contingencies would sit for years and years and years, and the intent was to scoop all of those small unused dollar amounts that were contingencies or for overage than those and put them back in the capital fund so they could be utilized. This method is, and they could just use those for whatever based on that project. So this method was set up to put all of them into one contingency pot. And so when those contingencies came up, we need an electrical panel fixed, we have an RTU that went out, we have a boiler that needs replaced, we have a sand filter that's got bacterial growth, we need to disinfect, all those things that weren't included in the budget, we would go forward and say, this is the reason that it needs to be used, this is what it's for, so it'd be a little bit more centralized tracking on that, as opposed to, well, we've got some funds left over in this account from this RTU, and we can use those to fix this real quick. It's just to have more tracking of what those specific contingency funds are for.
And I'd like to add, so a lot of times, some of this stuff may be emergencies also. And we don't always know when that's going to happen, obviously. And if we don't have the funds available, we have to find them somewhere. So they either come out of the general fund and we don't have them there, or we keep a contingency somewhere, and the number again is looking I mean, all these pieces scattered around and gathered into one place, it adds up. The other thing you'll notice on here is that, I thought it might, what's the right word? It might be more, fair if I kept them in the buckets that they were originally put in. So that facilities kind of knows, well, I've got $94,000, I've got this $200,000 problem, I know I gotta go ask for 100. And security, obviously, you're all aware of ongoing issues with getting our buildings to a level that we would like to have them at. And I think, again, Michael could probably say $204,000 isn't even close to dealing with the issues that he hasn't brought forward because he knows we don't have the money. So, you know, if we have cameras that have to go into a certain place or badge access that has to be put in. We didn't have badge access to HR or finance. And that was something that we felt was really critical at that moment. And that was in the middle of the year, had not been planned for. That came out of this type of thing. When they identify projects like that, we don't just start swiping dollars out of contingency. We make them explain what that project is. And then we go out and set that up, put a number on it, and we track it. And so when it comes to how do we fund that, the money comes out of here, we've got a trail. Kim is the one that's most responsible for that. And I think most people that deal with her on budget stuff can attest that she's pretty thorough about why are you asking me for this money? And I need a good explanation before I'm going to move it.
So Randy, just could you clarify for me? So the number, I understand the contingency philosophy.
Right.
Okay, but the numbers themselves come from adding up actual little bits
Yeah.
of leftovers. They're not just a multiplier.
No.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
No.
Thank you.
And not to say that we couldn't get there, but frankly, given the magnitude of the dollars that we're talking about, they're less than $500,000 compared to the whole sum. And what Michael has got on his plate, you know, a new structure and Manitou coming up and all kinds of things. I really don't think it's a good investment of his time or my time to try to slice and dice $500,000 on things that he's going to probably tell me, I got to guess here, I got to guess there. I mean, if he's got something that's a valid thing that needs to be fixed, he's going to come talk to me. Not that that isn't something we couldn't do in the future, but I don't see that being something that I could go to him in fairness and say, hey, I need you to identify this number. And he's going to tell me I've got other things you want to talk about, those that need your attention.
I think also Randy actually right now is being very modest about that. It took him a lot of work to look at every single department, figure out those contingency funds. Those contingency funds live all over the place in this district. And it was impossible to find and understand why certain departments had those contingency funds. That was a work of I don't know how many months, even a year, to figure it out, to streamline and to provide that. And that's what's happening. And of course, Tammy Sales, Heather Lastly, Michael Bretner, and many others worked, and Denise worked with Randy to put this together. There were late nights when they were going through that and figuring out and streamlining and putting it in one place. What it does, it gives better control. So that if there is a need, for instance, Carnegie Library, like I let you know, downtown, we have this issue there that we're still looking and examining and gathering the price tag, right? We need to fix that balcony situation. So that will be something that Michael can come with justification, say, If we don't do that, that's a safety issue. So again, I want to thank Randy and his team and a lot of people at PPLD. They really worked hard to figure out and identify every single account and streamline that. So just wanted to say, and you don't have to be modest about that.
Thank you for that clarity. Are there any further questions before we call? Can I get a motion on 21?
I move that we, as the board, approve the resolution for supplementary budget as presented. I think I read that right.
I'll second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries, and we'll move to decision 25-3-5, budget adjustment resolution, special revenue funds prior year roll forward.
Okay, so this one, similar to the other, this is actually something that I hope won't be needed. I keep saying this every year. I'm hoping they will spend the dollars that are assigned to these individual library locations. The special revenue fund used to be in existence, and actually prior to me coming to the library district, counting standards were changed so that special revenue funds weren't to be used anymore, and the dollars that you would normally spend for that would be put up underneath the general fund. That happened, but we could not move the dollars that were previously assigned to the special revenue fund. They had to be spent down. And so I've gone to facilities again, looking at, it's not super high priority. I would like to get this off the docket for us having to do this every year. But they've got to have projects in place that'll support, spending the money. Now, obviously, Cheyenne Mountain, we could probably find something in excess of $812, so we could spend that, and then whatever else they need, they would take it out of general fund, or I would. High Prairie, we've identified some larger dollar amounts of things that might happen there, like an expansion or more grounds work. We chewed up a large piece of that with the gazebo and the garden and the walkways and all that stuff. Sand Creek, I really don't know what they've got going on there. That could spend down that $12,000. But this is just a standing carry forward until all these funds are spent down, because I can't move it. And that's just the way it was set up.
Many moons ago. Many moons ago.
Yes, many moons ago. Any more questions on that one?
Discussion, we'll go and call for a motion. Someone make a motion, please. Read the whole motion. You can just. I move that we approve the resolution for some supplementary budget as presented.
Second.
Call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. This is what I said, I put the agenda in this session. So we'll be moving into the training room for that. Does anyone want a 5-minute break before we move to the second session? Okay. So we do a motion on the executive session, and we'll take 5 minutes.
Make a motion to move into executive session to discuss personal matters related to the 2024 annual performance evaluation of the chief librarian and CEO as authorized by CRS 24-6-4024F.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move into executive session.
All right, so we've moved out of executive session. Okay. We've moved out of executive session back into the regular board meeting and.
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove decision item 25-3-6 from the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Motion carries. All right, so then we'll summarize executive session briefly. We entered into the executive session to discuss personnel matters, specifically the 2024 annual performance evaluation of this chief librarian and CEO, and setting evaluation protocols and compensation discussions for the next year for 2020. So, all right, so then we'll move to business item now A, which is now 25-3. Change my mind a second.
We didn't change them, we just moved -6, so I would just call it the numbers that they are.
Okay, 25-3-7 then. 2024 chief librarian and CEO evaluation. And do we have a copy of the motion for that? So we need to fill in the.
I emailed it to everybody, but no, I didn't print out copies of the motion.
I make a motion that we approve the CEO's 2024 evaluation.
We need to. So I think this is the motion that had the compensation.
Gotcha.
It did. Let me pull it up.
I got it.
Oh,
You want the total number or the difference?
I was the
The person. I'll just do that.
I think he has it.
Yeah.
I'll read the motion as it's based on.
are you finding it too? Because I'm taking me a minute.
So I'll read it and then someone can. So the motion is that in recognition of Tiana Shanit's performance as CEO of PPLD for the 2024 year, the Pikes Library District Board of Trustees grant a 3% cost of living increase plus 3% salary increase for a total of 6% increase effective January 1, 2025.
Moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to decision 25-3-8, which is the CEO goals, and I will read the amended goals. So, the amended goals read as follows. Goal number 1, the CEO will implement priority aspects of the facilities master plan by A, proposing conversion into a hybrid model to increase community access by December 2025, and that is one conversion, excuse me. Proposing one conversion into a hybrid model to increase community access by December 2025. And B, providing a proposal by December 2025 that provides a staffing model for projected district growth in underserved areas over the next 12 to 18 months. Goal 2, the CEO will improve community engagement by updating data collection processes to better track and analyze patron demographics, ratios, and other PPLD system statistics to allow for improved data-driven analytics and decision-making, reporting to the board quarterly regarding progress. Do you have a motion to approve the goals?
Move that the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees approve 2025 Chief Librarian and CEO goals as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And then it will be,
Sorry.
decision 25-3-9, title change to CEO from chief librarian and CEO. Do I have a motion? Or any discussion? Well, a motion first.
I move the Pikes Peak Library District Board of Trustees approve the title change of the chief librarian CEO to just chief executive officer or CEO.
Okay.
Any discussion on the one?
Will that save us money having to print fewer letters on all this? Yeah, like I thought, okay.
Maybe on printing name badges. That's about.
I'm gonna ask another question, but why is this important change?
Title changes have to be voted on, and it was something that was requested for simplicity, and so people could better understand the description. The public, so we can direct inquiries properly.
I think chief librarian is a better title, because it's more descriptive of what it is. It's my 2 cents. We require an MLS for that role, so we require the person to be a librarian. It's not just annual CEO, but
No.
an ordinary CEO. That I think the chief librarian is more apt title. My 2 cents.
But we're discussing, we need a first and second, so before we vote, we're just discussing. Do you have any thoughts, Stephen?
No, I'm just losing track. It's
Okay.
okay.
What are your thoughts, Tim?
I think the original, if we go back, it was executive director of the library before. And then what I've experienced also when I explain what I do and what your job title, it does cause some confusion in the community. So that's why, like it was mentioned, to simplify that and see what my role is. I know that I oversee all public services, all library system, and I do have an MLS. But at this point, when it comes to my role, I do not perform a lot of librarian duties. So as I do not acquire or select materials, I do review all of the recommendations when we receive certain reconsiderations from the community members. But that's what also for the simplicity and clear understanding what this role actually does. And it's a long title, and I also have a long last name, just also to just. But yes, that's one of the main reasons to kind of clarification, like a lot of it does cause confusion, so.
No, I'd like to add a comment about her job, because I work with her a lot. She stated that she is responsible for the public services side overall. But she also deals with everything support. She has to know how to read a financial statement, how to deliver financial news. She has to understand our IS system, or our IT system. She has to understand and be able to allocate dollars to projects throughout the district. So having worked in the profit side of the world longer than the government side, those are duties that are synchronous with every CEO I've ever worked for. So I don't know that chief librarian covers what she does widely enough to cover all the responsibilities she's got outside just the library.
What, I was gonna just ask, what do other libraries?
Just like, but also may I,
Sure.
Another suggestion, if I may, that if we change the order and just say CEO and chief librarian, that's something that I think also covers it overall. In some of the libraries, that's how it is done, but I know, Scott already is doing the research, so I'm sure he's behind that.
Because I knew I was gonna state that, but DCO, Douglas County, the Executive Library Director. That's their title. For Denver, it was City Librarian and Executive Director. So there's no consistency really
Yeah.
amongst all the branches. Now, of course, that's just in the last 5 minutes that I've looked. So there could be some consistency in some of the other smaller branches and other systems within the state of Colorado, but I hope that answers your question.
Does our HR representative know from if there's consistency in titles?
They run the gamut across the country.
Okay.
It's just, there's no.
I think when you look at a library district the size and proportion of ours, my voice is going away, that's why I'm talking. And when I guess when I think of librarian, I do think of someone more hands-on behind the desk working. I realize that you do have your degree and that you do understand all library services, but I really feel like what you handle mostly is more on the CEO level. I guess that's, when I saw this come across, I thought sort of about time. And it might just be my perspective. I love my Aurora Tea Garden shows and, I don't see her running around doing that. But I do feel like when you have that librarian, you get chief librarian. But when you put that in there, I think the real role is really more of the, like what Randy was attesting to, what you see in, especially public, what CEOs actually do.
All right, any thoughts on CEO versus executive library director and preference? I'm just curious since that one came up.
But then that implies that there are other executive librarians, doesn't it?
The chief.
He's the chief.
So is moving to just CEO from CEO and chief librarian, or is there a preference for another title?
I think CEO is simple to the point, and I think people that she's working with outside of the areas are going to be able to understand it better and different entities.
Ms. English, your thoughts?
I agree.
You agree with that? Mr. Taylor? Since you have the full list there.
So even though Ohio Public Library, they actually do call their person in charge the president and CEO.
Ohio.
The
Ohio Public Library.
Don't take this the wrong way, but it's.
Actually, it's the Columbus.
Columbus.
Yeah, Columbus.
Yes. But
Fair question.
Ms. Spence, do you have any comments? Is she online still?
She is. I don't know if she caught Miss Spence.
Aaron. Aaron Benz, if you have any comments you'd like to add.
I'm sorry, guys. I was trying to do something on my phone while I was driving. I don't have an issue. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
I don't have an issue with the change to the shortened, just CEO. That's just my 2 cents on that subject. I understand the thought about the chief librarian, but I think as far as Teona's role, she's much more like the head of a large business at this point than she is, in that library function. So I'm really okay with the change.
Just for clarity, this is only a title change. It does not change the job description in any way. Just have to say it. Okay, well then, do we have a new motion and seconded then? Okay, all in favor of the title change, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Just try not to fall.
Yes. It's I do too, from swimming.
Which is your
Hang on.
diaphragm.
We need to adjourn.
Oh.
All right, unless there's any further discussion, I just we will then without objection adjourn at 8:46 p.m.
I'll sleep.